With the brew news this week, as we talked about, we're going to be really focused around sustainability. And we're also going to dive into some technology, where technology and tradition meet together. And explore how AI is transforming the craft beer industry, making your favorite brews even better. Spotlighting eco-friendly innovations and celebrating good old Earth Day.
Heck yeah. Those are the topics. I'm gonna take the first one because I like the idea of it, and I like the controversy around it, and it's a bit like poking the bear. And basically, we want to talk about how do people feel about the idea of AI meddling with your favorite beer. So there's a super cool article that came out from PC Gamer, nonetheless, if you follow that type of information. But they actually got the article from nature.com report, big, long, extensive report if you really want to get into those. The idea is that there's this rapid evolution. We're all aware of AI, and it's kind of permeating a lot of industries, right? It's meant to make significant impacts that range from impacts on the mundane tasks to the creative endeavors out there, right? There's this huge boom in everything that involves a computer right now. Yeah. Some are good, some are bad. You really got to wean out the good for the bad, and there's some tips and tricks out there to recognize what is generated by AI and what is not, depending on your level of care or indifference in that matter.
Okay.
So I even received a selfie from my mom a couple days ago to get me on the idea of this article that even she was thinking. I was like, oh, wow, what a beautiful picture. And she was like, and it's not even AI generated. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, what have you been reading, and what does that fully mean? And honestly, it was like, awesome. Like, hashtag no filter. I get it. Like, I totally get it.
No AI.
No AI. Like, same, right? But anyway, going on back to our beer, right? So this article, there was a study over in Belgium, a university professor, and you want to enhance beer flavor. And we want to talk about how it fits into our podcast. So let's see. The article navigates this integration of AI and the art of beer brewing. So this study, cut it back. So this study at this Belgian university, and so they employed machine learning models to basically analyze beer reviews and then the feedback from the tasting panels. So the goal was to predict and enhance the flavors of the beer, leading the production of higher rated alcohol beverage and even a non-alcoholic beer. Okay. So that rivals the taste of its alcoholic counterpart, right? Like we all know. So it's meant to demonstrate a practical application of AI in refining product quality based on consumer feedback. Mm-hmm. It's meant to be revolutionary, right? Yeah. You're looking at the errors. So from my perspective, what I took out of this and what really got me a little fired up and interested is the use of AI in such a context. It's a double-edged sword, right? And I do love those conversations. So while I recognize and appreciate the efficiency and objectivity that AI introduces to tasks such as correct my grammar, do simple math for me, mm-hmm. or maybe even just someone to bounce something, to bounce ideas off of, in whatever hours of the day. It's also really good for statistical analysis and business strategies. Yep. If you haven't gone down that route, I definitely recommend it. Yep. But also remain cautious about its role, right? So because, especially when it comes to Bachelor of Arts, Masters of Fine Arts, right? Very much brewing is an art, it's not just chemistry. It's not just putting numbers together and perfecting something that may taste bad because a number is off. I feel like I'm always going to be about human error in the art of brewing because it's those happy accidents that make something taste good, or maybe I put in something that I wasn't supposed to, but then happily it tasted wonderfully, and you create something new, right? It's that human nature that's so beautiful. So
and I think it takes
double-edged sword.
I think it takes away some of the opportunity to be creative, right? Like not just like happy accidents, but just in general, if you're like, all right, well, why would I mess with this recipe that is like perfect? You're not going to be as likely to explore with it, exactly what you're saying, versus if you're trying to make it perfect, you might happy accident into making something completely different.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, for me, like, I really want to appreciate that creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you're saying. And maybe like it's too easy to go down that easy button route if I'm like, this is the perfect lager, 1 + 1 = 2, and this is how I get the exact malt and hop water. My water pH level is perfect, and everything's been roasted, right? We talked about how things are to the nth degree and the nth second, and love that. You're going to get consistency and a really true flavor that people can always come to know and expect. But I'm still always going to be like, oh my God, I created something beautiful out of this mistake. And that is, I think, the beautiful part.
That's fair.
So I think it's a double-edged sword, and the point of putting this article out there, and I hope you guys like it, is to spark a conversation, because I would like to talk more about it. I mean, it's not just about that perfection, but also that creativity. Yeah,
I think also, even with what you're saying, unless your machine, unless your whole brewing process is completely automated, you're still going to have human error in there as well. So there's that piece. Sure. Just because AI told you to this nth degree in this second doesn't mean you're actually going to hit those markers, right? And like the grains could be different and the hops could be different. Like, you're never going to be able to make that absolutely perfect, right? Like, because there's just going to be variables to add in there. But I think you can get close. And I think of a lot of things with AI. I have no problem with people using AI for a ton of stuff. It's more of making sure you fact check it, just like any time. Like, I think of when like the internet came out and it was like, well, if people aren't getting their information from books, how can you trust this internet thing, right? Well, you fact check it, Sure. And so the kind of the same thing with AI. Just make sure you're fact checking it. Make sure it makes sense. Like, I've had AI help me write stuff and it's been wrong a ton of times, especially when it comes into like historicals for the fun facts. Like, it's wrong easily 50% of the time that I have to go through, but it gets me rolling on like, oh, that's an interesting idea, or I didn't even know to start looking in that area, but I still have to go through and fact check it and make adjustments. So I think the same kind of thing with the brewing. Like, if you want to leverage it to be like, oh, hey, on Untapped, what's like the top 5 recipes for fruited wheat beers, or top 10 recipes of last year if you're trying to make something trendy. Like, it can be a really good way to aggregate some data and then leverage that to move forward with it, right?
Right, but that's knowing and learning how to put it in a box, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't
for
get
sure.
to be creative, because if you allow it to be creative, it can read you down a misinformative path.
For sure, yep. So again, I think you're right. I think keeping the creativity, keeping the art within the art, always up there, but also like, might as well use it if it's there, and it could inspire something totally new. We'd be naive to think that people that are leveraging AI to create recipes aren't going to come up with new things.
Oh yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, that's what it's there for, right? Like,
again, bounce ideas. If you ain't got anybody to talk to because it's 2:00 in the morning, or whatever.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Chat with Johnny.
They're like, who the fuck is Johnny?
I know. Liz and I call chat Johnny. Seems more like a friend than just a computer program. Johnny.
Sometimes I call it a piece of shit. But
sorry,
not
Johnny.
always.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good think piece. I think there's a lot of cool stuff to ponder in on that, and I hope it gets people thinking and talking and hear their ideas on it. I would do a whole brewery and everything was just AI. There's no art to it at all. Just kidding.
I think that's what larger industry brew houses do, right? Like, they've gotten things down to a science where people can, again, they can come to expect a certain flavor and they're going to get it every single time. There's no out of the box. There's no unexpected flavor profiles, right? Like, I hope somebody comes in with an argument about that, and in a great way, right? Like, because would love to continue to have that conversation, because I tell you what, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
it's only going to get more, especially with the advanced in brewing technology, right? Like, you're already being like, beep, 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 the malt is ready. And you're like, all right, I'll go get it. I mean. Yeah, and people would argue that took the art out of it, right? Yeah, Eric always said, like, automate yourself out of a job. Why? So you can go do more creative things and the things that people want and know and expect, because that's what the market says. You give it to them. You give it to them every time.
Yeah.
So you can open up the door for something else that maybe you want to do, or opens the door for creativity.
Yeah. Not spending all day watching stuff boil. You get to put your energy elsewhere. I love it.
The watch pot never boils.
It's just a stupid computer.
Talk about a piece of shit. All right. All right. You got this next one. This is also super fun.
All right. Highlighting modified hops for the preservation of beer. It goes pretty good with sustainability. I see what you did there.
Yeah. And this one's from, if you can't read that, this is from the BBC.
Yep. The human presence and the realization of climate change challenges industry globally. Stroud Brewing, which we have talked about before, in the UK is pioneering with its innovative use of climate-resistant organic hops. Their participation in what's known as the Innovation Farmers Hop Trial characterizes a crucial shift toward the sustainability brewing. If you missed our discussion on this topic, you can catch it up in, which is crazy to think about, Season 1, Episode 2.
Yeah, we're on Season 2, Episode 4.
Yeah, that just seems like a million years ago, and that's pretty wild, but it's coming back again.
Yeah, check it out if you haven't seen it.
Man.
Or you need Relate to.
I think we'll probably put the little thing there maybe if we remember. A lot of stuff to remember with all this. So Stroud Brewing is highlighting the innovation by integrating hops known as Endeavor and Harlequin, which are known for their being disease resistance and ability to thrive in warmer climates. The brewery has successfully produced 2 beers that maintain their flavor in the changing conditions, which demonstrates the potential for adaptation. The effort ensues a continuation of beer production, but also promotes biodiversity and improves soil carbon levels on organic farms. The blend advances science with the blend of advanced science and agricultural practice to secure the future of beer makes us all happy. Should make us happy, right? Like, you got to do it. It's things are changing. Whatever stance you sit on it, we all know, like, at least somewhat things are changing. Slight little took the dogs in. In Colorado, they've never really like pushed the flea and tick because we don't have ticks here. Because it's just like we're too high of climate, and we just don't really have like that long of seasons. I feel like it should be long enough, but it's really dry.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of bugs in general.
We don't have a lot of bugs in general.
Even though bugs landed on me. But we really don't. Like, no mosquitoes.
Yeah, very rare.
Yeah.
But basically now they're doing it, and they're doing tests to see if they have like tick-borne illnesses. And my vet said last year with the new test they were giving, she had 2 dogs. And they're like, all right, whatever, that's higher than none, but we also weren't running the test, so whatever. And in the last week, she had 4 test positive for ticks. And the things that they basically pegged it down to was the fact that it's warmer here more often. Our winters aren't as cold. We're getting a crap ton of snow in the mountains, so it's wetter. And then people that are adopting, and we're bringing dogs in from all over the country that do have ticks. So Marigold tested positive for having a pathogen from having a tick disease. She doesn't currently have it, but she came in from a state that has ticks, right? And so, and the other part is talked about like the migration of animals, which I thought like bringing ticks and dropping them because they're coming into town more. Think of all the elk out here.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Rocky Mountain tick, right?
For sure.
Super duper small. And I hate that I know so much about ticks, but I come from a land where there are a lot of ticks.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, which I think corresponds and correlates with the hops really well, is
changing climate's happening. So to whatever stance where you want to call it climate change, but it is changing, and whatever you want to chalk it up to could just be nature doing its a cycle, right? But things are changing to not only the beer industry, but like even our pets.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight that people travel and pets travel, and not to bring it back, but like the ringneck pheasant of South Dakota is the state bird, but it's an invasive species that was brought over to help with a bug problem.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's now the state
Cock
bird.
Facts brought to you by Liz.
Again, something I'm super well known for. Check me out on onlyfans.com.
What did I do? I thought. Anyways, small tangent on there, but
let's get back to the haps.
Small tangent, but I thought it relates, right? Just the changing climate. So yeah, basically, I mean, we wanted to highlight the article and a little conversation here, because we love it. Like, it's giving a glimpse into industries doing their best to help facing environmental changes and efforts to make things more optimistic and optimistic. We talked about the malts that are in the area that are more resistant, and that's just what you got to do. And if you're not, then prices are going to keep going up, and there's going to be less product available. So things just have to change. That's the way of the market. But once you get into those, like, you see really cool innovation happening, and I love it. I love it.
I also want to highlight, and we're going to get into it, so I think you'll like this. We'll get into it a little bit more in our top 10 coming up, so stick around and watch that. But sourcing local ingredients,
yeah,
right? Again, if you keep it simple, you keep it in the area, right? It's the same reason why you eat honey from your area, is because it helps with allergies that you're prone to in the environment that you live in, right? Because the bees are a part of that environment, and it's naturally creating these antibodies against it.
Yeah.
I don't know if antibodies is the right word, but I think you get the point. Something to combat the other.
Yeah, you're exposing it within your own body. Yeah.
Right. So you're going to see a lot more use of locally sourced hops. You're going to see a lot more use of driving 50 miles to get your grains rather than having your grains shipped thousands of miles because it came from Yakima Valley or whatever. You know what I mean? And nothing against that. You're still going to see those out there because they're an amazing product, and that's how they thrive and survive. But you'll also see the smaller breweries and larger ones locally sourcing to combat any sort of perceived destruction against the foundation.
Yeah. We're going to see that with Steven in a little bit. A couple minutes here. You're going to see Steven's passion and focus on sustainability and keeping things local. It's a fantastic thing.
That's right. Speaking of local brewery.
Let me shift it.
I think we can kind of share this one, but Strange Craft Beer Company in Denver
has a great pepper beer. It's like my favorite beer of theirs.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really, really good. We're going to highlight they're tackling more of an ancient beer technique by reusing leftover bread from bakeries. Yeah. They released this, we're a little late, a couple weeks ago. I think it was on April 3rd for part of the City and County of Denver's Food Waste Prevention Week. I didn't even note the name. Shit.
Strange is not the one with the pepper beer.
Oh,
I have the wrong one. I was thinking, I don't remember.
Oh, well.
When you said Denver, I was like, oh, this one's not in Denver. It's one out in, like, Durango.
Strange would love to get them on the show, too. If they're listening, they do a lot of sustainable, environmentally friendly. Obviously, I mean, they're making the headline here. They were recently in the news, right? We want to highlight what's currently happening and what's happening in our local area, right? Because we try to keep it local to where we are.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I didn't have the name. I'll make sure to put it in below. The comments below. But anyway, so they're utilizing old bread like sourdough and rye in this brewing process for this beer to reduce waste, right? But they also repurpose the spent grains as animal feed. Yep. Closing the loop. Love it. Thinking about every aspect of where that grain goes. So, like we said, it's no longer on tap, but apparently the enthusiasm is incredible for it. So we hope to see it again.
Why not? What a great way to reuse stuff. Doesn't it just go sit and rot in a landfill? That's a great way to use it. I was thinking if you had like an on-site pizza truck and you like, when people don't eat the crust, you like save that. That would be a funny way to do it. But then it made me think of the pizza beer that I think New Belgium did. That was like $50 for a 4-pack. It's bonkers.
The Voodoo Ranger? Yeah.
I was like, cool. I'm not spending $50.
I might. Depends on how I was feeling that day. No. Just to try it.
Yeah. If they want to send us one, we'll try it.
Yeah, they should send us one. What I really like about this story, again, would love to spark an additional conversation. We did another Brew News back that we'll put up in the link above or the link below. We talked about a woman that created a whole home brewing process off of using old bread, right?
Yep.
A homebrew kit and old bread.
Yeah, that's what she started her whole brewery.
Yeah, it's a great correlation of the two, right? They're very similar in this aspect. So it brings in these ancient brewing techniques. It also brings in the idea of reduce, reuse, recycle, right? Yeah. And keeping it local. Keeping it real.
I feel like often, like, because of, like, I think the FDA has done a lot of amazing things. People don't get nearly as sick from food poisoning and dying. But on the flip, because of it, we end up with a lot of food waste. Like, we were at the casinos, and it was awful seeing how much food waste out of the buffets.
Yeah, that one's hard to watch. Any buffet, really. But
yeah, exactly. That's just the one we saw regularly.
Yeah.
And it was like, can't you just, like, donate that? And they're like, no. And, like, I feel like there's an ebb and flow, right? Like, they had to team up with the city to get it, like, regulated where they could use old bread. Like, they weren't able to just, like, go pocket a bunch of bread and do it because it probably wouldn't have passed the FDA regulations.
Right.
Or whatever regulations. I don't know if brewery, depending on the state, if you're regulated by that. But, like, I get it. Pros, but cons to it. I think there needs to be a little bit of wiggle room. It would be great to reuse some of the wasteful food to rack it out.
Yeah, and I'm over here like, feed it to the animals, but then you got to be careful, right? Because you got to be careful with sugars and any sort of processed stuff. Like there has to be that regulation, right? You don't want to hurt them either.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
California's doing like Kevin's mom was talking about it, that like it's wet, you compost it, and then they come and pick it up. So they don't want it in the garbage. Now you're composting it, and the city sponsored this compost program. And then as a resident, you can go get free compost for your gardens and stuff to like then start growing your own stuff. And his mom's big thing was like, I have no idea the crap people are throwing in this. I would never put that in my garden. And I was like, that's actually kind of a fair point. I never would have thought about it. I was like, on paper, this is great. And I was like, she's like, I don't know, people like, because she wouldn't throw like sugary processed stuff. And she's like, people are going to throw everything in it. I would never put this into my garden.
Airbnb were just that.
For the chickens.
For the chickens. Yeah. A compost bin on the side, right? They have a bunch of chickens. They're like, hey, what a great way to utilize scraps of people that stay with us. But here's things that are good. It was very specific, right? They put it in a box. It wasn't left open for suggestions, right? You have to be incredibly specific what they can and cannot have, right? And what might hurt them. So that's cool. Being conscientious of that, not just saying, well, it's wet.
What's the what? Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I'm sure like Strange Craft too, right? They were like, hey, well, I guess I don't know. If it was, would love to know. Was it just any old sourdough and any old rye? I don't think there's really that bad of ingredients. But again, there's still the room for sugar, but you probably want the sugar, right? Like that's the fermentable aspect. Anyway, it was probably great. So I'll be quiet.
We don't know anything. No. We know nothing.
I mean, we know what we know, and there's
we know what we know.
And we don't know what we don't know. So there's that. Anyway, thanks for that brew news. Actually,
sorry for a tangent. I feel like we haven't been on our high horses and our soapbox for a little bit.
The brew news has been going well, and I would love to spark
some more conversations,
right? Like, get a hold of us.